good morning, depending on what time zone you're in. And thank you for joining us for our live webinar, the 2015 Guide to Evaluating, Activating, and Optimizing the latest SAP Enhancement Packages. My name is Lon Blake, and I'm the Program Manager for SAP Technical Services at Yash Technologies. Today's webinar will focus on technical concepts of SAP Enhancement Packages, including how they impact an SAP environment, and provide expert guidance for getting started with, installing, and activating them, either as part of an upgrade or as a standalone project. We will have a Q&A portion at the end, so please type any questions you may have in the questions box on your side panel. In this session today, you'll get answers to these questions as well as more. I want to install an enhancement package. Where do I start? What's included in all of the EHPs, and do I need it all? Do I have to install all enhancement packages, or can I just install the latest one? What happens if I skip one? I installed an enhancement package, so it's ready for my users, right? Learn what it means to install, activate, and configure an enhancement package. And what happens if I don't activate everything in the EHP? Do I need to do something with the support package stacks, or are they included in the enhancement packages? And finally, do I have to use SAP Solution Manager or any other program to install an enhancement package? We're going to try and clear the haze that many of you may have on implementing enhancement packages. Today's agenda will understand the enhancement package contents and strategies behind them. We'll also look at exploring the enhancement package architecture and your options. We've got an entire section on implementing enhancement packages, and then we'll have a short wrap-up and a Q&A at the end. So understanding enhancement packages. SAP's Business Suite innovations deliver many improvements and enhancements. With Enhancement Package 7, which was released in August of 2013, there are more than 700 new or enhanced business functions. As you can see from this screen, as well as the next two, there are enhancements in just about every area that SAP ERP 6.0 covers. These include enterprise asset management, financials, human capital management, or what we used to call HR. There's cross-functional operations. There's also operations, sales and customer service, manufacturing, procurement, shared service delivery. As you can see, they go on and on. And then finally, there are enhancements, business functions, for all of the industry solutions that SAP offers. Now, all of the industry solutions, or what are now being called industry enhancements, used to be add-ons. They are now included in ERP 6.0 with the exception of apparel and footwear. And SAP is now offering more innovation, less disruption, and a longer perspective. Now, what do I mean by that? ERP 6.0 will be around as it currently stands through December of 2020. All new innovation, all new functionality will come to you through enhancement packages. So SAP is going to offer you an awful lot of innovation with a longer perspective and less disruption to the business. Less disruption to the business simply because I can apply an enhancement package, all or part, as part of a standard maintenance routine when I do support packages, and I will have all the new business functionality available when the business needs it. So no more downtime needed. The business needs new functionality that was included in Enhancement Package 7. You put a project together to go out and activate that functionality, to configure it, and roll it out to your end users. We'll talk in more detail as we move forward. So here's our first poll question of the day. What version of SAP ERP are you currently running? Are you running R346C or earlier, ERP 2004, or what was known as ECC5, or any version of ERP 6 with or without enhancements? I'll give you a few seconds to respond. Okay, let's see the results. So 92% of the audience is running ERP 6.0. That's a good thing. But 8% of you are running 4.6C or earlier. So in order to take advantage of the functionality we're going to be talking about here in this webinar, you're going to need to upgrade to ERP 6.0. So let's look at the Enhancement Package Architecture and what some of your options might be. First thing we're going to look at is the evolution of SAP's architecture. For the 8% of the audience that's currently running R346C or below, you've got what shows on the left-hand side of the screen. You have SAP Basis Layer. That's the part of SAP ERP that interacts with the operating system and the database. You've got the application itself, which is now known as ECC Core, but it consists of FICO, SD, MM, PP, etc. You can also include HR or HCM. And on top of that, you've got what SAP used to call the industry solutions that were all add-ons. When SAP came out with 4.7 or Enterprise, the basis layer became known as the Web Application Server. There wasn't a lot of change to it, but the name changed. Enterprise Core, the application layer, is actually 4.6C. It was a stable version, so SAP utilized that as the basis for 4.7. On top of that, they put what they called the Enterprise Extension Set. It was SAP's first baby steps towards enhancement packages. The idea was that SAP will give you new functionality in these extension sets that you no longer have to do a full upgrade. Unfortunately, the technology wasn't there, and the only way to get the next version of extension sets was to perform a major upgrade. So 4.7 lasted through two versions, Extension Set 1.1 and Extension Set 2. And then on top of that, you have your industry solutions. Now over on the right-hand side, we're going to skip ECC 2004 because it did look a lot like ERP 6 or ECC 6, if you want to put it that way. On the very bottom, you have NetWeaver. This is the basis for all SAP components now. The application layer or application server that used to be the basis layer is down at the very bottom and now contains Java and ABAP. They both still take care of all of the coordination between the database and the operating system. For those of you that are familiar with older versions and may have had an ITS server that allowed you to get outside of ERP, it's now been built into the SAP kernel, so it's part of NetWeaver. Also part of NetWeaver is your process integration. Process integration used to be known as Exchange Infrastructure. It's now PI. It is a component that is basically content for NetWeaver. Right over that is something that the slide still identifies as business intelligence. It has gone through a number of different iterations. Started as BIW, Business Information Warehouse, became known as BW, then became known as Business Intelligence, and then SAP acquired Business Objects, or BOBJ. And everybody realized that the intelligence existed in the BOBJ side of the house, which is now pretty much a front end for SAP's BW, or Business Warehouse. And then on top of that, you've got your SAP portal or people integration. As of Enhancement Package 7, NetWeaver version is 7.40. On top of that is what's called ERP. You've got your ECC Core, which aligns to the old application layer in R346C. You've got your enterprise extensions, which pretty much still act the same way they did in 4.7, and the industry extensions, what used to be the add-on industry solutions. You can see it says, if you can see the small print, it says switch framework right above those. We'll discuss the switch framework in more detail in a few minutes. But also included in ERP6, you've got a limited functionality supplier relationship management that can run right in ERP6, or SAP also offers the full-blown SRM that runs in a standalone. You've got self-services, internet sales, composite applications, strategic enterprise management, and a lot more going on in ERP6. And then on top of that, you see the enhancement packages. All right, so let's talk about some tools. Software Logistic Toolset 1.0. SAP has established an independent delivery channel for regular software logistics tool improvements. And that was established with SL Toolset 1.0, basically targeting a reduced total cost of ownership for current customer landscape. The most prominent tool in the arsenal is SAP's Software Update Manager, or SUM. As you can see on the screen, it is now required for SAP's Business Suite 7 Innovations 2011 and above. And what is Business Suite 7 Innovations 2011? It's ERP6, Enhancement Package 6. It's CRM. I believe it was Enhancement Package 2 for CRM. SCM, also with Enhancement Package 2. And SRM, again, with Enhancement Package 2. They're all part of what SAP considers the Business Suite. More information is available out on the Service Marketplace at service.sap.com/SLToolset, as you can see on the screen. And as well, I've given you the central release note for the tool set. It's SAP Note 1563579. So I've mentioned business functions. I haven't mentioned technical usages yet, but we'll talk more about those as we move forward. And let's talk about the relationship between the two and the software components. So a business function is the activatable unit within, in this case, the SAP ECC server. So I've listed two. These actually came out of Enhancement Package 4 or 5, if I remember correctly. One of those is a real estate management. The other is a general ledger accounting function. These can be activated once they're installed on an individual basis. Now, they all come to you in what SAP calls a technical usage. And a technical usage does nothing more than group software components that must be installed together. All HCM business functions will come to you in an HCM technical usage. All what used to be the 4.6c application layer is now the ECC 6.0 core layer will most likely come to you as part of central applications. There's also technical usages for all of the industry extensions that are out there. And then these relate back to the SAP software components. As you can see on the screen, the two business functions that we've listed over on the left are actually both part of the standard SAP ECC server and the central application, which updates the SAP APPL component and the EA APPL. And for those of you new to SAP, or maybe not with the technical background, the EA APPL is the enterprise extension portion of the central component. Okay, let's take a look at Enhancement Package 7, and we're going to focus on this slide on the installation, which I'm keeping totally separate from activation. You can selectively install technical usages in your ERP6 system. So if all I need, let's say the business has come to me and said, I need business functions for finance. And I know that all of those business functions, based upon the SAP note that was listed on the previous slide, I know they're all in the technical usage central instance or central applications. I only need to install the central application technical usage. I do not need to install everything else that's out there. And that's illustrated on this slide, as you can see in the blue section, the highlighted with red, where my EA APPL and my SAP APPL, the version is now 617, whereas my EA HR, my SAP HR, my IS Oil are all version 600, which simply means ERP6 with no enhancement package. And you'll also notice that the ABAP layer and the basis layer are both listed as 740. Those versions will change as soon as you do an installation of an enhancement package, regardless of whether you've activated any functionality or not. Okay, so now let's talk about what happens when we activate a business function. Based upon the switch framework, I have access to each one of these more than 700 business functions, and I can go in and I can activate them on a one-by-one basis. Now, there are enhancements that are also included in NetWeaver. There are enhancements for BW, for process integration, for portal. As I indicated, those are all content for NetWeaver. Anything on the NetWeaver side is active as soon as it's installed. So as soon as you install a NetWeaver 7.40, you've got all the functionality that was provided by SAP for BW, for portal, for PI, whatever content you're installing. On the ABAP side, the ERP side, that back-end functionality is switchable. Now, I kind of put quotes around switchable. I can turn them on one at a time, or all if I need them all, but in most cases, I cannot turn them off. It's a one-way switch. So I'm going to mention this for the first time, and you'll probably be sick of hearing it by the time I'm done, but you will need a fully functional SAP ERP 6.0 sandbox, preferably a copy of production so that you've got good test data. You will need a sandbox for a project team that's evaluating business functions. Because the only way you'll be able to really tell if they're going to work or not is to turn them on, try them out. You can't turn them back off again. So do it in a sandbox. Okay, more information on the switch framework. Switch framework is what makes it possible to control the activation of these objects. Activating a business function triggers switches in the code. You can think of it as a gate. When the business function has not been activated, the gate is closed and locked. No code will run through that gate. When you activate the business function, the gate is unlocked and opened. So any code that comes to that point in the program is going to continue to run the new code that was listed on the other side of the gate. And this is already a proven concept. SAP used it to retrofit the industry solutions so that they're all now available in your system in an inactive basis. Now let's talk a little bit about the enhancement framework and what that is. The enhancement framework is something that SAP put together that utilizes the switch framework. It allows customers to modify SAP-owned objects without getting a repair key, and these are treated pretty much like customer exits are treated. If you do an upgrade, there's no impact on a customer exit, and there's no impact on anything done via the enhancement framework. And in fact, utilizing the enhancement framework, SAP's ultimate goal is that when you do an upgrade, you will never have to, again, use SPAO and SPDD to do adjustments, because the enhancement framework will take care of those. Now, for anybody that came from an older version and did not use the enhancement framework and has modified SAP code, those modified programs will always continue to cause you a little bit of an issue during an upgrade. All right, Business Suite 7, Innovations 2013, and some of the differences between Innovations 2011 and Innovations 2013. And this is based on ERP. You'll notice the version numbers that are out here. On the old version basis, even though it was NetWeaver 7.0 Enhancement Package 3, within the SAP components, the ABAP and basis versions were actually version 7.31. It is now officially NetWeaver 7.40, and your ABAP and basis layer reflect that. And except for HR, which when you implement Enhancement Package 7 remains at component version 6.07, all other components, when you implement EHP 7, become 6.17 is the version number. And this is only a small part of the complete software stack. On this slide, we see a few more components listed here and what their versions would be as we move forward. I'm not going to spend any time on here. It's just as put here as an example for you, the differences between Enhancement Package 3 for NetWeaver 7.0 and NetWeaver 7.40 and what some of those versions become. All right, this one is extremely important. For those of you that might have a BW instance that was built as a dual stack, in other words, you have an ABAP and a Java, both built in the same instance in the same database, as of Enhancement Package 7 or Business Suite 7 Innovations 2013, SAP is no longer supporting a dual stack configuration. You're going to have to split the ABAP and Java into separate instances. They can reside on the same server, but they have to be totally separate instances. And SAP has a nice little tool, part of the software logistics toolset, that will allow you to do that split relatively easily. And the SAP notes that cover this are listed on your screen. Now, in rare cases, a dual stack is still required for Solution Manager and Process Integration, or PI. Both of those still require dual stack, although even PI is going to get away from that shortly. All right, let's talk about implementing enhancement packages. And here's our second poll question of the day. Are you planning to implement an enhancement package this year? Yes, no, or not sure? Once again, I'll give you some time to respond. Okay, let's take a look at the results. Are you planning on implementing an enhancement package this year? 40% of you are saying yes, 20% are saying no, and another 40% are not sure. It's a pretty good breakup. I really like to see the 40% saying yes and another 40% that aren't sure. They just don't have a project in the works yet. So let's talk about what it takes to implement SAP enhancement packages. Utilizing the application lifecycle management, which is SAP's newest process and procedure, and I will compare this to the SAP ASAP methodology in just a few minutes, but you can see on the screen the steps of ALM are requirements, figuring out exactly what we're doing. Design. All right, how are we implementing and what are we implementing? Build and test. This is the actual install, the activation, and the testing. And then finally, deploy, go live, and support. Now, there are 2 more steps to the ALM, and that's operate and optimize. Now, how does ALM compare to ASAP, which most of us are familiar with? Well, ASAP has basically what's called plan, build, and what's not shown on the screen here, run. So the planning phase, which is part of requirements, consists of discovery and evaluation. Discover new enhancement package functionality and evaluate whether this is going to work for us. When we get into the build phase, ASAP methodology has 5 steps: prep, blueprint, realization, preparation for cutover, and finally go live and support. These now equate back to ALM. Preparation and blueprint are both design. We're going to do the business blueprint, figure out exactly what it is we need, how are we going to implement it, setting up your project, utilizing Maintenance Optimizer to perform the download. The realization and part of prep for cutover equates back to build and test. We'll actually do the installation. If we're doing any activation as part of our project, we'll activate, we'll configure, we'll test prior to rolling it out to the business. And then finally, the ASAP phase of go live and support maps perfectly back to deploy. We're deploying the new solution. And you can see along the top which pieces, who needs to be involved. The business is defining requirements. Business process expert and system administrator will work together on both the design phase and build and test. And then finally, the system administrator does the actual deployment. All right, phase 1, selecting required business functions. How do I do that? Well, there is a place to go, single point of access for all the information. It's called the Enhancement Package Info Center. As you can see on the right-hand side of your screen at the top, I've given you the link, service.sap.com/ERP-EHP. This is the standard SAP Service Marketplace, and that link will take you directly to the enhancement package page for ERP. Now, if you're looking at enhancements for CRM, the link is simply CRM-EHP, and so on. There's an immense library of documentation out on the service marketplace on every business process in every enhancement package. And there are some tools out there that SAP offers that will help you identify which business functions we actually need. There's a tool out there on the marketplace called Innovation Discovery, which will help you find new features in all of these enhancements. Or if you're coming from 4.6c, Innovation Discovery can help you determine what new functionality is going to be part of ERP6 and what new functionality can I get as part of the enhancements. And then the Upgrade Dependency Analyzer is another tool available, both linked from Solution Manager as well as available on the Service Marketplace, that allows you to, I'm running CRM, and I may be running an older version, works just fine with 4.6c. If I upgrade ECC to 6.0, is my version of CRM going to continue to work seamlessly, or will I have issues? The upgrade dependency allows you to do that comparison, whether it's CRM, SCM, BW, portal. It allows you to do that comparison and will tell you whether you have issues and how to resolve those issues, or whether there's no issues as you move forward. So how do I evaluate a business function? Well, I recommended earlier that you use the sandbox system, and I'm making that recommendation again. The activation of the majority of the business functions, and as of Enhancement Package 7, there's approximately 700 business functions. As far as I know, there's about 35 that SAP claims to be reversible. So for the most part, you're going to need to install these in a sandbox, activate them in a sandbox to see if they work for you. Design phase, preparing your technical installation. What are the prerequisites to check before installing? Got to check your documentation out on the service marketplace. There will be, in some cases, a prerequisite to installing an enhancement package. You have to choose your installation approach. Is it business-driven or is it IT-driven? We'll get into a little bit more detail in a few minutes on exactly what that means, business-driven or IT-driven. And then mapping your business functions. If it's business-driven and the business is giving you a list of business functions, how do I know what technical usages to install as a basis admin? So we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. There is an SAP note that does that comparison for you. So here's the initial installations. Business-driven. This used to be known as selective installation. The business determines that I need a business function for retail buying that's available. So I go out to SAP Note 181-8596, which contains the mapping for Enhancement Package 7 of the business functions back to the technical usages. I determine which technical usages I need to install. I then select them using the Solution Manager Maintenance Optimizer, which helps you do an automatic calculation, and it also helps you download the required files. Once you've got them downloaded, you're going to use the Software Update Manager tool to help you install them. Then you need to do a modification adjustment, and then finally regression test. For IT-driven, used to be known as broad, the business hasn't gotten involved yet. IT just knows that the business wants to implement new functionality within the coming 6 months or a year. So they implement technical usages that they feel will fit best. Central applications. The company is running HCM. They'll install the HCM enhancements. If you have an industry solution, such as IS Oil, that one has to be installed. And that may be all that IT will choose to install. Or IT may simply say, gee, I don't know, and install everything. Either way, Maintenance Optimizer will help you calculate that and download the files. And from that point on, the entire process is the same for either approach. Okay, phase 3, build and test. Software installation and activation. System administrator or your basis administrator will install the enhancement package, and Maintenance Optimizer is going to point out support packages that are required for that as well. My recommendation is always go with the latest, so that in 3 weeks when SAP releases another support pack stack, you're not behind the 8 ball. You have the latest and greatest. Up to that point, in 3 weeks, you're not going to apply a support pack. You're going to use the Software Update Manager to install it. You're going to activate any business functions that the business wants at this point in time, and then you're going to do regression and acceptance testing. Now, enhancement package test case templates are delivered by SAP. And you also have within your Solution Manager system a risk-based testing tool, Business Process Change Analyzer. The catch to that, the Solution Manager has to know what business processes you're running, so they all have to be defined within Solman in order to use the BPCA. And Solution Manager 7.1 SP5 or higher is pretty much required at this point. 7.0 Enhancement Package 1 will work to a certain extent, but it's out of maintenance. And so SAP's recommendation is upgrade Solman. All right, Software Update Manager, let's look at a quick timing diagram. The median runtime for an overall enhancement package installation with support packs or a version upgrade from 4.6c to 6.0 can be done with the Software Update Manager. And the median runtime is somewhere around 46 hours for the whole operation. However, downtime, we're looking at closer to 6 to 8 hours, depending on your implementation. I've seen downtimes as low as 4 hours. I've seen them run as long as 10 for the technical portion of this update. Now, there are going to be post activities, some data verification, some post-update testing, some backups that may have to get done. Those will add to your system downtime, but the actual technical downtime right now for the process is averaging somewhere in the neighborhood of about 6.5 hours. Okay, system landscape aspects. This diagram looks pretty similar to the one I talked about with the sandbox. However, what this one is displaying is a parallel landscape. Excuse me, a copy of development or a copy of QAS used to do productive support for your production instance. Why do we need this? Well, once I've implemented Enhancement Package 7 in my dev system, and then once I've implemented that in my QAS system, I'm in the process of testing. Your longest window may be between QAS and prod while you do your regression testing and user acceptance testing. And if I have something go wrong in prod during that window, the only place I can fix it is in prod. So my recommendation as an X-Basis admin is that I have at least one instance that I can use for productive support. My best recommendation, SAP's best practice recommendation, is that you have two. You have a development and a QAS. If you can only afford one, my recommendation is make a copy of QAS, open it up for development, make that your new dev system for productive support. Okay, installation of additional technical usages. I've installed central applications. That is a requirement that you must have in place using Software Update Manager. If you choose to install a technical usage later that you didn't know you needed, there's two ways to do that. You can use the Software Update Manager. It has advantages of shorter downtime. Productive work is possible prior to downtime during the uptime portion. Disadvantage, total runtime is longer than sync. Or I can use transaction sync. It's been in the system forever. It's how we used to do support package installations. Again, the prerequisite is central apps must already be installed. Disadvantage, it's got a longer downtime compared to some. You're pretty much down the entire time. So that means users are out of the system, totally. Now, there are shorter total runtime for small installation queues if I only have a small package or a few packages. Be aware that both of these options require you to do modification adjustments. Those are transactions SPDD for data dictionary adjustments and SPAU for ABAP code adjustments. And you've got to do regression testing for the affected software components. My recommendation when you do regression testing is you just do regression testing on everything. Everything that you are using. Okay, activate and configure. Most of you probably have not seen transaction SFW5, Switch Framework 5. This is the transaction that lists all of the business functions that you've installed in your system. And this is the transaction where you go to activate those business functions. Again, my recommendation for this transaction is that no one have activation authorization in their role on a permanent basis. In a sandbox, okay, give it to one or two trusted people in a sandbox. You know how to reconfigure a sandbox. You're going to refresh from prod. That one's easy. In dev, my recommendation is to put activation authorization in a separate role that's given to one trusted person to go in and activate these business functions, and then the role gets taken away from them. The activations are transportable, so a transport will be created, and you can transport those activations onto your QAS system and finally production. There's no need to have activation authorization in QAS or prod. However, you're going to want certain people to have access to SFW5 in at least QA, because a lot of the business process documentation is available to you from the transaction. Activate changes, and then a background job will get started. Next, please. There's the background job that will actually do the activation. And next slide, please. Okay, I talked about reversible business functions. Since Enhancement Package 5 or Innovations 2010, there are some reversible business functions. And I kind of use reversible in quotes, because as you can see in the first bullet point, a reversible business function can be tested or evaluated in dev QAS systems, but only in separate clients. The activation is client independent, but the business function in this particular case is client dependent. So I can do all my testing in a different client in dev, but when it comes time to deactivate it, I can turn it back off again, but the only way I'm going to get rid of everything is by deleting that client. So it's not really user-friendly. And my consideration of the 700 business functions is they're not reversible. Okay, test and go live. There's activities that you can do, acceptance testing using, obviously, your end users. Use standard test case templates that are available. Again, these test case templates are available either on the service marketplace or they are available in Transaction SFW5. So these can be downloaded, modified for your use, and utilized. You train your end users if you've activated any business functionality, and then finally go live after you transport to prod. Now, one thing to keep in mind is SAP's best practice recommendation. Again, perform a technical update, install the enhancement package with support packages in a standard maintenance window, and then take on these small projects to activate, configure the individual business processes as you move forward. And then finally, you're going to deploy. You're going to do the update of the productive system. You will need to install using Software Update Manager. The activation is transportable. Unfortunately, the installation is not. It does still require a maintenance weekend. You'll release the EHP system for productive operation, and typically most everyone will do a couple of weeks of post-go-live support, and that depends on how many business functions we're actually rolling out to the business and how complex are they. Some prerequisites for your ERP 6.0 EHP 7 installation. Solution Manager 7.1, SP5 or higher, which includes the latest version of the landscape maintenance tool, is a requirement. As I mentioned earlier, Solman 7.0 EHP1 is out of maintenance and should not be used. At some point, because it is out of maintenance, you will not be able to update the content of your Solution Manager to include enhancement packages. And if the enhancement package is not included as part of the content, you won't see it as part of the maintenance optimizer. Check your platform, your operating system, your database availability utilizing the TAM tool within the service marketplace. This is important because you will find that certain versions of your database that run perfectly well on ERP 6.0 may run perfectly well up until Enhancement Package 5. As of Enhancement Package 6 and particularly 7, some of those versions, and I'm thinking about SQL Server 2005, Oracle 10 as prime examples, are not supported for the latest enhancement package. So you may find that you have to do an operating system or a database upgrade in order to be able to implement Enhancement Package 7. Make sure you've checked the compatibility of your add-ons. The SAP notes for Enhancement Package 7 for ERP are listed here on your screen. Make sure you read those notes so that you know that your add-ons are compatible. I've run into certain issues. OpenText, for instance, in order to upgrade to Enhancement Package 6, I've had several customers that have had to do an upgrade of OpenText in order to be able to do that. And support packages in general, there is no minimal support pack level required. Recommendation is don't update a software package and then a month later decide I'm going to implement enhancement packages. Unless you check, again on the service marketplace, the alias SP-stacks, to see if there is an equivalent stack for the enhancement package that you want to implement. And again, there is an SAP note listed here that discusses that availability. Okay, user sandbox. Most business functions are not reversible. Combine the installation with the latest enhancement package stack. Be careful when you're in a mixed environment with ABAP and Java systems. Read the documentation. Use the master guide as a starting point, and again, Solution Manager 7.1 SP5 or higher. Okay, quick wrap-up. I've given you some sources here, where to find more information. I'm not going to read through each and every one of these. They're available either on the service marketplace or SAP's new support portal at support.sap.com. And finally, enhancement packages are optionally installed and activated. They are, by the way, cumulative. If I've not installed Enhancement Package 1 through 6, I can simply install Enhancement Package 7, and I get all 700 business functions. You get everything. So you can skip them as many as you want, unlike support packages. The Software Update Manager and the Solution Manager Maintenance Optimizer are required. EHPs only deliver changed objects to your system. The effort dependent upon whether you're looking at business-driven or IT-driven. Enhancement Package 7 requires NetWeaver 7.4.